They weren't just casually counting days or seasons. They laid the groundwork for how humanity experiences time as a concept, influencing everything from calendars to how we think about the future. So, if you've ever wondered why we experience time the way that we do, or why a housefly seems to dodge you like it's a bullet, then this is where it gets fascinating. Let's dive into how the Sumerians' understanding of time shaped civilization and even hints at quantum level mysteries. Ready? Let's go. So, in framing this discussion about Sumerians and time, we are going to explore how they were pioneers in structuring and experiencing time, diving into the implications for the human perception of time compared to other animals, and introduce potential quantum connections. First off, is Sumerians were pioneers of timekeeping. They invented the calendar and lunar observations. They were the first civilization to create a structured calendar based on detailed observations of the moon. In addition, they were the first to experience linear time and record it. While other cultures may have observed cycles, the Sumerians' written record suggests that they may have been the first to perceive time as something that progresses in a linear fashion. This is something that's critical for narratives, history, and planning. And so it's one of the first things that we see for why Sumer was so advanced and so critical to the development of civilization and where we are now. So, what makes us different? How is time different from us to dogs? Why does a housefly move so fast? Well, first of all, human time perception is experienced as a blend of past, present, and future. It's driven by memory, anticipation, and planning. So, we are able to foresee events, understand things conceptually versus just in the here and now. Animal time perception, however, is predominantly in the present. While they have rudimentary memory and anticipation skills, their sense of time is largely instinctual. So, while you may see your dog think, oh man, to get that treat, I gotta be good, it's still on a lower level than the way humans perceive time and understand that, if they continuously do good at, say, work, then the continuous effort is rewarded. And so humans are able to pontificate much, much further in the future and plan for much further ahead events. And Sumerians started this. Sumerians' abstraction of time was a defining evolutionary and cultural leap. By formalizing time into units, they allowed for the synchronization of large groups of people, shared agriculture seasons, religious festivals, and trade schedules. Because of time and their understanding of time, we were able to form society. Okay, and I know I have been teasing quantum connections to this for too long, and before I sound like too much of a crazy person for keep dropping the buzzword quantum everywhere, let me explain a little bit about what I mean here. All right, so in quantum mechanics, time isn't a rigid linear framework, it's more of an emergent property that's linked to the observer's perspective. This idea resonates with the Sumerians' abstraction of time, which wasn't just tracked through natural cycles, but actively divided into human centric units like days, months, and years. By shaping time into something measurable and structured, the Sumerians laid the groundwork for how we experience time today. In traditional physics, time is often treated as continuous, a smooth flow without breaks. However, some theories propose that time is made up of discrete, invisible units, much like quanta in other areas of physics. This mirrors how the Sumerians divide time into discrete, measurable segments like hours and minutes, creating a framework that allowed for planning and synchronization across their society. Advanced theories like loop quantum gravity suggest that spacetime is made of fundamental loops, while some interpretations of quantum entanglement imply that time itself could be an illusion created by deeper relationships within the universe. While the Sumerians couldn't have known about quantum mechanics, their cyclical view of time, based on interlinked lunar and solar patterns, suggests an intuitive grasp of time's nonlinear, interconnected nature. Modern science increasingly points to time as something that we experience sequentially only because of our limits of human perception. The Sumerians' organization of time into cycles, lunar phases, agricultural seasons, celestial movements, reflects this broader understanding of time as a repeating continuum rather than a strict one directional flow. Their ability to record and predict these cycles marked a significant leap in human consciousness, bridging instinct and abstraction. And then, tying it all together, quantum theories of consciousness, such as the Penrose and Hamerhoff model, suggest that the brain processes time in discrete moments of quantum collapse. This idea aligns with the Sumerians' approach to time, where they broke down continuous experience into measurable units like seconds, hours, and days. By organizing the world in this way, they essentially mirrored the quantum process of collapsing possibilities into defined realities. This ability to structure time not only transformed their society, but also highlights why time itself may have been the first gate to unlock the full potential of human cognition. The Sumerians had a big role in shaping our human experience of time. The Sumerians fused mythology with practical observation in a way that was truly groundbreaking. Take Sin, the moon god, for example, a deity revered not just for religious purposes, but as the embodiment of the lunar cycles that they meticulously tracked. This wasn't just about worship, it was about early astronomy in action, where the sacred and the scientific worked hand in hand to structure time. For the Sumerians, tracking celestial bodies wasn't just spiritual, it was essential to their survival, influencing agriculture, trade, and even governance. By formalizing time into measurable units, the Sumerians laid the foundation for how we perceive reality itself. Their innovations didn't just shape the ancient world, they set the stage for disciplines like history, physics, and even quantum theory. Think about it. The ability to divide time into past, present, and future fundamentally changed how humans understood their place in the universe. It allowed us to tell stories, record events, and build on knowledge generation after generation. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. What the Sumerians did with time mirrors something that we see in modern science. Their abstraction of time as something measurable, divisible, and relative feels like humanity's first quantum leap. Today, we understand time as observer dependent, influenced by motion, gravity, and even perception. Much like how they connect time to cycles, they could observe and measure. It's as if their understanding of time bridged this instinctual and the abstract, pulling humanity into an entirely new realm of consciousness. In many ways, Sumerians' innovations in timekeeping created a seamless link between ancient wisdom and the cutting edge science that we grapple with today. Their brilliance wasn't just in their tools or myths, it was in how they reached a cognitive threshold that allowed humanity to perceive, organize, and ultimately shape time in a way that refined how we live and understand the world. Now, if you're anything like me, you're already tearing apart everything I just said. Because let's be real, if we're going to say time was the first cognitive gate to open, we've got to ask some big questions. Why? Why did this happen at this specific stage of evolution? And more importantly, what is the difference between simply experiencing time and actually perceiving it in the structured way that the Sumerians did? How we do. What was it, biologically, that allowed humans to cross this threshold when we did? These questions have been rattling around in my brain for a very long time. So let's dig into it. Okay, time to dive into some actual explanations of all of this. So the biology of this whole time perception thing starts right here in the human brain. You see, our brains have specific regions that are responsible for processing and perceiving time. The prefrontal cortex, the cerebellum, and the basal ganglia. These areas work together like a finely tuned clock, giving us abilities like episodic memory, to recall past events, temporal prediction, to anticipate what's coming next, and interval timing, to gauge durations. Now, here's the catch. In animals with simpler brain structures, these functions don't operate in the same way. For most animals, time is all about instinct, reacting in the moment to survive. It's not about remembering when to plant seeds or plan a harvest. It's immediate and reflexive, not abstract. Of course, some animals excel in some of these areas, and I'll cover how that fits in a bit. This is where humans stand out. The development of the neocortex, particularly the prefrontal cortex, gave us a massive upgrade in cognitive abilities. It's this part of the brain that lets us think ahead, solve problems, and even create stories. Things like, if I don't plant these seeds now, I won't have food later. Or, I messed up this section last time and I should enunciate these words better. That ability to integrate time into larger narrative, to connect the past, present, and future in meaningful ways is what sets us apart. This neural complexity wasn't just an evolutionary side quest, it was the moment that we unlocked something huge, the ability to perceive time as more than just a survival mechanism. It became a tool, a concept, and ultimately the foundation for everything that we've built as a species. So now let's talk about the leap from living in the moment to planning for this future, a shift that fundamentally separates humans from other animals. Most animals perceive time in a present-based way, where survival depends on reacting to immediate stimuli. It's all about short-term cause and effect loops. Hunt now, eat now, run now. There's no real abstraction, no looking back to plan ahead, just instinct doing its thing. Even squirrels collecting nuts for the winter know to start doing that because of instinct, not because they looked at their calendar and saw that it was September and they should be stashing nuts. Early humans weren't all that different, at least at first. Like any other animal, they were tied to the present moment. But as our brains evolved, something incredible happened. We started developing episodic memory, the ability to relive past experiences and mentally time travel, which allows us to imagine and plan for the future. It's not just a cool trick, it's a survival game changer. Environmental pressures like seasonal cycles, food scarcity forced us to adapt. Those who could remember where food was last year or anticipate migration patterns had a massive advantage. Over time, this temporal awareness became key to our survival. It wasn't just about reacting to the now, it was about planning for the what if. From a quantum perspective, this shift represents a cumulative encoding of time information in the quantum field. Each species builds on this encoded experience over generations, adding to the collective blueprint of time perception in the natural world. With humans, this encoded knowledge reached a critical threshold, unlocking the first cognitive stage of our species, the ability to perceive and manipulate time abstractly. And this was the point where humanity began to truly differentiate itself from all other species. This ability to conceptualize time, to imagine futures, and learn from the past became our foundation for intelligence and innovation as we know it. And with that, we set ourselves on a trajectory unlike anything our world has ever seen. So, why did we make this leap into abstract time perception when other species didn't? The answer lies in the growing complexity of human society. As our answers began to form larger social groups, social coordination became essential. You couldn't just rely on instinct anymore. You had to plan for group hunts, store food for the future, and build shelters that would last through the seasons. This required a shared understanding of time, where the past, present, and future became a collective framework for survival. The Sumerians exemplify how this reached its peak. Their calendars, seasonal tracking, and structured use of time weren't just clever innovations, they were tools for managing increasingly complex societies. You needed everyone on the same page, or at least the same timeline, to make agriculture, trade, and government work. Language played a huge role here too. While animals might give alarm calls for predators or signal food nearby, these are immediate, present focused communications. Humans, however, began encoding these temporal concepts into language. Words like yesterday, tomorrow, and later gave them the ability to discuss time as an abstract idea. This reinforced the cognitive framework for thinking beyond the now. The real advantage? Abstract time perception allowed humans to delay gratification and plan long term. Whether it was storing food for winter or aligning agricultural cycles with lunar phases, this ability to connect the natural cycle of time to abstract goals gave humans a massive edge. It wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about thriving. This shift wasn't accidental, it was the natural outcome of evolution meeting societal complexity, and it set the stage for everything that followed. So, why did we cross this threshold at exactly this point in our evolution? It comes down to hitting a cognitive tipping point. By the time we reached the Sumerian stage, our brains had already developed the capacity for abstract thought and temporal awareness. Early hunter gatherers likely had a basic sense of time, enough to anticipate migrations or track food sources, but they didn't need to formalize it. Life was more reactive, tied directly to environmental cues. That changed with agriculture. Farming required something completely new, The ability to think in long-term cycles. Planting seeds, tending crops, and harvesting weren't tasks you could approach instinctively. They demanded months, sometimes years, of strategic planning. You couldn't rely on the immediate present anymore. Survival depended on aligning your actions with seasonal rhythms, which meant humans had to move beyond basic time perception to fully structured, abstract time. The shift wasn't just about individual survival, it was about managing organized stationary communities. Agriculture tethered humans to one place, creating the need for record keeping, calendars, and eventually large scale coordination of labor and resources. That need for structure pushed us to formalize time into measurable units, something the Sumerians perfected with their meticulous tracking of lunar cycles and celestial movements. This stage of evolution represents the moment where human cognition truly separated from instinct and stepped into abstraction. Time wasn't just something we reacted to anymore. It became a tool, a system, and ultimately the foundation of civilization of itself. Let's dive into why humans perceive time the way that we do and how that ties into both biology and quantum theory. Biologically, our brains experience time subjectively, shaped by attention, memory, and emotion. But modern quantum theories suggest that time, as we perceive it, might be an illusion or observation, a construct emerging from how we process reality. This idea intriguingly aligns with how the Sumerians blended cyclical and linear time, which hints at a deeper connection between perception and the nature of time itself. Animals, by comparison, experience time through their survival lens. Creatures with faster neural and metabolic processes like flies perceive the world in slow motion, giving them split-second reaction to advantages. Humans with slower processing evolved to view time in broader horizons, enabling us to plan, abstract, and project into the future. This wasn't just a biological adaptation, it's what allowed us to conceptualize and measure time on a scale that supports storytelling, agriculture, and even civilization. The Sumerians' timekeeping innovations, tracking celestial cycles and dividing time into structured units, reflect not just their ingenuity, but the culmination of this unique perspective. Their understanding wasn't practical, it symbolizes a shift from experiencing time instinctively to mastering it intellectually. All right, let's talk about this biological quantum gate and why time is such a unique and essential concept, and why it might just be the first quantum gate that humanity unlocked. Time is fascinating because it's both something we experience and something that we abstract. Unlike sight or sound, time isn't something that we directly observe. It is a construct, something that we infer from changes in motion around us. And that's exactly what makes it so special. Time inherently involves processing relationships and interactions, much like quantum systems. In quantum mechanics, time is treated as an external parameter, not an observable property like position or momentum. But here's the twist. The effects of time, things like change and the evolution of states, are absolutely essential to how we describe reality. Time might not be measured in the same way as other quantum properties, but its presence is vital to understanding how everything interacts and evolves. In biology, time perception is a construct created by the brain. It doesn't exist as a tangible sense, but rather as the synchronization of events, casualty, memory encoding, and more. And that creates the illusion of a sequential flow. This ability to organize the chaos of raw sensory input wasn't just a cool evolutionary trick, it was an adaptive advantage. It allows us to structure our reality in a way that helped us survive and thrive, planning for the future and learning from the past. This interplay between quantum systems and biological constructs is why time is a perfect candidate for the first quantum gate. It's both fundamental and abstract, woven into the fabric of how we process reality itself. The Sumerian era marked a convergence of neural complexity, environmental pressures, and the demands of social coordination. It was a perfect moment for humanity to unlock a deeper understanding of time, and the implications were profound. One fascinating theory that I briefly touched on earlier comes from the Penrose-Hamerhoff model, which suggests that microtubules with neurons might facilitate quantum coherence. This would mean that the brain operates on a quantum level, integrating memories of the past with anticipations of the future into a unified present. In essence, our ability to process time may stem from quantum like interactions happening within the very fabric of our biology, bridging the gap between biological functions and quantum mechanics. As human brains became more complex, time began to organize our experiences of reality. It allows us to recognize cause and effect, weaving actions into outcomes that could be understood and remembered. Memory, once fragmented, became a cohesive timeline, providing continuity and allowing humans to revisit the past in order to anticipate the future. This ability to link events and outcomes made long term planning possible, transforming survival from instinct reaction to deliberate strategy. Time perception also addressed immediate survival needs. By understanding and anticipating cycles, humans could use resources more efficiently, coordinating efforts across groups and adapting to seasonal rhythms. The ability to track celestial patterns or predict migration routes wasn't just practical, it ensured survival in environments where resources were scarce and timing was everything. At this stage of evolution, time perception wasn't just a concept or cognitive breakthrough, it became the foundation of human innovation, allowing us to structure our reality, plan for the future, and thrive in ways that no other species could. This leap in understanding set the stage for everything that followed, from agriculture to civilization itself. All right, let's address the elephant in the room. Does calling time perception a quantum biological gate just sound like fancy jargon, or does it actually mean something? When we dig deeper, it turns out there's more substance to this idea than you might think. Time perception bridges the quantum and classical worlds because it requires interpreting chaotic, probabilistic states and transforming them into a coherent, ordered flow. This process is surprisingly similar to how quantum systems behave. At the quantum level, particles exist in a state of superposition, meaning they occupy multiple states at once until they're observed, collapsing into a single outcome. Human time perception works in a strikingly similar way. Our brains take a chaotic flood of sensory data, sight, sound, sensations, and collapse it into a singular linear experience of now. This act, focusing and interpreting reality, mirrors the quantum process of collapsing probabilities into an observable state. Then there's the concept of measured induced inversibility in quantum mechanics. Once you observe a quantum state, that observation introduces an arrow of time. An event becomes fixed, irreversible. Human cognition does something similar with memories. When we encode an event into memory, it becomes a part of the past, unchangeable and irretrievable except as a reference point for planning and learning. This irreversibility is what gives rise to our linear perception of time, the foundation for how we organize our lives and plan for the future. Finally, let's talk about neural coherence. The synchronization of neural activity in the brain may mirror quantum coherence, where seemingly independent events are unified into a single structured system. This coherence represents the biological collapse of chaotic sensory input into a unified timeline, allowing us to perceive time as sequential and structured. Far from being buzzwords, these parallels highlight how time perception is fundamentally connected to the quantum world within the biological, creating the cognitive framework that allows humans to thrive. Time perception wasn't just a cognitive breakthrough, it was the spark that ignited higher order thinking and transformed humanity into what we are today. By acting as a biological quantum gate, time allowed us to integrate the past, present, and future in ways no other species could. This integration gave us the ability to relive the past through episodic memory, not just for nostalgia, but to enhance learning and pass down knowledge across generations. It also gave us the clarity to exist in the present by aligning our sensory inputs into a cohesive experience and, crucially, to anticipate the future, enabling goal setting and even delayed gratification. In short, time perception unlocked the full spectrum of human experience. This leap also set the stage for symbolic thought and abstract reasoning. By detaching from the immediate moment, we could imagine and create beyond what was directly in front of us. This ability birthed narratives and myths, like the Sumerian cyclical time stories, and inspired development of tools for measurement, like calendars and sundials. These aren't just practical tools, they laid the groundwork for abstract disciplines like mathematics and science, where time became a fundamental organizing principle. But perhaps most importantly, time perception was the glue that held societies together. Shared concepts of time allowed for coordination on a scale that had never yet been possible. People could plan for resource allocation in agriculture, synchronize trade routes, and organize collective rituals and festivals that reinforced cultural identity. Over time, this synchronized perception of time became essential for the emergence of legal and political systems, where long term planning and accountability were key. In essence, time perception didn't just allow us to survive, it did allow us to thrive. It gave us the tools to innovate, to connect, and to imagine a world far beyond the present moment. Why did time become the first quantum gate? the cognitive breakthrough that fundamentally changed human evolution. It's simple. Time is universal. Unlike vision, which depends on light or sound, which requires vibration, time is a constant of experience for all living beings. It doesn't matter what you see or hear, time is always there, shaping how you interpret everything around you. But for humans, time isn't just a backdrop, it's the organizing principle for all other perceptions. Without it, sensory input would remain chaotic, fragmented stream. Time perception is what allows us to weave those fragments into a coherent understanding of reality. This framework didn't just appear out of nowhere. It became the prerequisite for humanity's most defining tools like written language. Time was the chicken, the cognitive ability that allowed us to sequence for events, plan for the future, and remember the past. Written language became the egg, amplifying our grasp of time and then formalizing it. With writing, we could record history, laws, and calendars, preserving our understanding of time across generations. Together with time perception and written language, created a shared cultural framework enabling societies to thrive. Here's the catch. Written language and the arts couldn't have come first. Both rely on the foundation that time perception provides, the ability to structure events into the past, present, and future. Without that ability, there'd be no reason to create tools like writing to document it or art to symbolize its passage. Time was the mental scaffolding for these human innovations, enabling abstract thought, long-term planning, and even the reflection needed to create meaning through storytelling. Biologically, this shift was essential. While other perceptual gates like spatial awareness focus on immediate survival, time allows for anticipation and preparation, key components of complex cognition. And this is where humans truly set themselves apart from other species, even other members of the Homo genus. While chimpanzees and some animals exhibit episodic memory and short term planning, like using tools or storing some food, their perception of time is tied to immediate survival. Humans evolved a unique capacity to conceptualize and communicate events across vast temporal scales, which allows us to share narratives, delay gratification, and transfer knowledge across generations. This advanced temporal cognition didn't just help us survive, it allows us to shape the world around us. It was the foundation for agriculture, enabling us to plan seasons ahead. It made complex societies possible, with laws, governance, and cultural traditions built around shared temporal frameworks. It wasn't just a cognitive leap, it was the critical shift that made Homo sapiens the only species so far capable of truly abstracting and mastering time. And with that mastery, we gain the ability to shape not just our environment, but our future. And let's wrap up by talking about the moment that humanity stopped simply existing and began actively shaping our world, a true evolutionary quantum leap. When time became biological quantum gate and unlocked the ability to think beyond the immediate, setting the stage for everything that defines us today. Time perception allowed humans to conceptualize change in ways that no other species had before. Before this shift, survival was purely instinctual, a reactive process tied to whatever was happening in the moment. But with the ability to perceive time, humans moved from reacting to the present to deliberately planning for the future. It wasn't just about finding food when it was available, it was about planting seeds now, knowing they could grow into something useful later. This was survival reimagined. Time perception also expanded our cognitive horizons, enabling us to think abstractly and symbolically. For the first time, humans could tell stories that spanned past, present, and future. This wasn't just for entertainment, it was how knowledge, culture, and meaning began to take shape. The ability to organize ideas across time allowed us to invent tools, create myths, and build the foundation for mathematics and science. Without time as a framework, these achievements wouldn't have been possible. More importantly, time made humanity future oriented. We could anticipate challenges, prepare for them, and even imagine futures that had never existed. This shift transformed survival into thriving. It gave us the foresight to develop agriculture, plan for natural disasters, and build infrastructures of civilization. Time perception is the key that unlocked our potential to not only survive, but to imagine and create something more. This wasn't just another step in our evolution, it's a leap that made everything else possible. By understanding and mastering time, we gain the ability to think, plan, and innovate on a scale that reshaped the world. So, after diving into the myths, conspiracies, and even these quantum mysteries, what really ties it all together? It's time. But not just as a concept. Time is the first cognitive gate that humanity unlocked. The Sumerians were the perfect example of what happened when we crossed that threshold. They didn't just observe their world, they organized it. They structured reality, gave it meaning, and built a framework for everything that followed. Their innovations in timekeeping weren't just clever, they were revolutionary. They turned abstraction of time into something tangible, paving the way for written language, agriculture, architecture, and even the stories that still inspire us today. But the story of time is bigger than the Sumerians. Unlocking time as a cognitive gate changed everything about how we experience reality. It gave us the ability to connect the past, present, and future in ways that no other species can. It shaped how we think, how we plan, and how we imagine. And here's the thing, we don't need aliens or wild conspiracies to explain this. It's a testament to the brilliance of human ingenuity. The ripple effects of that first leap are still with us, woven into every aspect of ourselves. So, as we wrap up, let's not just admire the Sumerians' incredible contributions, let's reflect on the deeper truth that they reveal, that their legacy isn't just about ancient civilizations, it's about humanity's first great leap, unlocking the gate of time. This wasn't just a tool that they mastered, it was a foundation for everything that makes us human. It was the key that allows us to explore, innovate, and imagine, and it remains the thread connecting our past, present. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey. Next time, we're going to dive deep into the secrets of Egypt and see what there is to uncover in the desert. I have some interesting theories about the pyramids. See ya.